Hi, I'm Angie Veman, and welcome to Totally Clutch. This is the podcast for women like you to find ways to simplify your business and personal life. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Welcome to the road trip extravaganza of Totally Clutch. I apologize first and foremost for the audio quality, but I wanted to record a couple of episodes from the car as I make my way back to Minnesota to spend some time with my family at the cabin. And I wanted to do this because I want to talk about some ways that you can put things in place in your business so that you can go off and spend time with your family and your friends and do all of the things that you love and all of the things that light you up without feeling and without having your business crumble to the ground as a result. And that's ultimately what we do at Clutch Businesses, is we go behind the scenes. We try to take as much off of your plate as the business owner as possible. And we don't do that by, hiring a staff of 10 people to take on all of the things that you were doing. We do that by doing a couple of different things. One is we document all of the things that are happening in your business, and more importantly, all of the things that are in your head that are really important and really crucial to the business and how things are done, but can sometimes be really hard to translate to other folks. And so that can lead to you feeling like you have to do everything. So we document all of the processes, all of the things, and then we automate not all, that would be amazing, but we automate as many processes as we possibly can. And we do that so that, all of the kind of day-to-day things, all of the repetitive tasks, all of the so that's the easy place to start, but also all of the really important things. So collecting money for the things that you are offering and providing for people, and making sure that your team is getting paid, all of those things, all of those really important things are automated as much as possible so that they don't slip through the cracks, so that they don't become this big thing that unnecessarily becomes a bit of an issue for you, for your team, maybe even for your customers. So today I want to talk about documentation. And I maybe didn't say this, but I'm going to do a couple of episodes from the car. And ideally, all of it will lead up to you becoming a thriving business owner. So you going out and doing all of the things that you love in your personal life, but also all of the things that you love in your business. Because let's be honest, there are a lot of things that we do as business owners that we feel that we have to do, but we don't necessarily love. And so that's where we'll end. So today I want to talk about documentation. And there are a couple of things actually that happen with documentation. And I guess I should first start out with what that means. So documenting, writing down or recording in some way, shape, or form the processes that happen in your business. So all of the things that happen on a day-to-day basis, and maybe even not a day-to-day basis, but happen regularly at some kind of regular interval in your business. And so and that recording, that documenting can be in any form that works for you and your company. You just want to make sure that it is a form that is available to everybody that needs it, everybody easily available and easily findable to anybody in your business that is going to need it. And so that's what it is. And then let's talk about why it's important, or what happens when you do this. So there's a couple of different things that happen, that I see happen for business owners. One is that they're able to hand things off to people in and on their team. And things that, again, feel like you have to do them because there's, so many different steps. There's, too many things to think about. There's so many other aspects of the business that have to be incorporated to make a decision or to move forward with it. So you can hand it off to people. I also see something really amazing happen where the process actually gets simplified. And I think that this happens for, again, a couple of different reasons. One is by you sitting down and actually thinking through the process, you start to see areas, and maybe it's not you, but maybe it's somebody else, starts to identify all of these things that maybe don't need to happen, or where you're maybe duplicating steps or just overcomplicating things. So when you actually sit down and think about it from start to finish, these things start to pop out at you that are a bit cumbersome, that didn't seem like it before because you were just doing it. That's the way that you've always been doing it. Things get added on that have to happen, and you don't always go back and revisit all of the other things that are happening. So that's one thing that I see happen as a result. And then the other thing that I see happen is that we get clearer as business owners. So when we're doing it, we don't have to think about a lot, because we already know it all, right? Like, we're already making decisions from this place of knowing and understanding what it is that we do and why we're doing it. And this documentation, in some ways, has us take a step back and really get clear on all of that so that we can communicate it to somebody else. I actually had this happen in my business. I have been, from the very beginning, really intentional about being clear on my why, being clear on all of these different aspects of the business that were important, being clear, I thought, on my offerings and my, how I charge and how I deliver these things. And when I started hiring team members, I realized that I wasn't that clear. I was kind of doing what felt right, felt in alignment with all of those things, but it wasn't necessarily clear why I was doing, maybe not why, but it wasn't clear each of the decisions that I was making, each of the things that are important to the business, how that all kind of ties together wasn't that clear. And so having to explain it and pull somebody else in helped me really solidify that. And it wasn't hard because like I said, I knew all of those things, but crafting it in a way that somebody else could understand it was really, really helpful for them, for me, and for the business as a whole. So it allowed me to get clearer in the way that I talked about it with clients, potential clients, all of those types of things. So those are the things that I see happen. And then I guess another thing that I see happen is the team really is able to step up and step into these roles that maybe were a little murky before, or they were waiting kind of for you to provide guidance, waiting for your direction. And this documentation really empowers them, so they get crystal clear on the process. They get so just almost just as much as you get working on it at a clip, and then they're able to start to think about a lot of different parts, or a lot of different things in the business that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. And so they really start to contribute in a full and hearty way, and in a way that feels really good to you. They really, really feel like a part of the team, a part of the organization, and like you're all working towards something together, which is awesome. And so that is, I guess, in a nutshell, what documentation is, why it's important, and then I guess let's talk about how to do it. So I would start with maybe some of the things that are happening on a day-to-day basis, some of the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, or some of the things that your team is already doing on a day-to-day basis. And maybe those are things that are not, like people are still coming to you with a lot of questions, or every time it happens, somebody has to touch base with you at some point along the way. So I would start in those places and see if there isn't a way that you can document it so it's clear, but also start to look at the process and see if maybe there's an opportunity to pull you out of it. And this might be easy, it might be obvious. The other thing that you might start to find is that maybe maybe the process as it is now, or the protocols, or the pricing, or the offerings, whatever, or the timing of things, maybe those are set up the way that they've always been for whatever reason. But maybe there's an opportunity to shift things a little bit to make it easier. So maybe if you do, I'm trying to think of an example, but I think it'll be obvious how you can start to clean these things up. And honestly, the cleaning up doesn't necessarily have to happen. Just documenting the process from start to finish. And this could be you sitting down with one of your team and just talking through it and having them document it, or you sitting down and thinking through it and putting it down, on paper, or recording, even just you talking about it, and then putting it in a different format later would be great. And so the other thing, I guess, or maybe the other place, well, I guess let's start there. So that's where you would want to start, is things that you're doing every day that you kind of know that you don't necessarily have to do, or things that your team is doing every day that still involves you at some point along the way. And then the other thing that I want to encourage you to do as you're doing this is to think about all of the things that you consider when you're doing something. So I'll give an example of what I mean by this, and an example of how important this can be and how impactful it can be on your business. So I had a client that sends out a newsletter to their entire list, everybody that's a part of their organization. They do it, I think it's once or twice a week. Anyways, they hired somebody to do this newsletter, and they weren't, it was one of the first people that they were paying regularly on their team. They were still a contractor, but they had invested quite a bit in getting some help with this. And having that person on the team actually made the process clunkier, and it made the newsletter, so the newsletter was always kind of a big deal. They treated it every week like a big opportunity to draw in the folks that they were connected to, and they wanted it to be engaging. They wanted it to have a lot of information in it, and they are an organization that provides so much to their folks, to their following, to their members. And so they wanted the newsletter to be a reflection of that. And so they wanted to give a lot of hearty information in it. So anyways, it was always kind of a big effort to get out with all of the other things that they had going on. So then they bring this person on. They pay them, a lot of money to be, handling the newsletter. And what ended up happening is that they still, well, not even still, like I said, the process got clunkier, and they weren't getting the newsletter out on, even on the same schedule that they were before, because the person that they hired would put it together, and then they would have to review it. And what would end up happening is my client was like, I'm too much of a perfectionist, and so when I get the draft, I'm fixing all of these things, not fixing, but adjusting all of these things and adding things and all of that kind of stuff. And so she was thinking that, it was because she was a perfectionist, which is, I think a lot of us can relate, and I think I've probably used this example quite a bit too. But perfection, or having, I guess, delegating and having other folks do things instead of you, doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice that perfection. So what she did instead is sat down, took a minute, and shared all of the important things. So this person that they had hired, they initially didn't share, how they like things laid out. They didn't share the fonts and the coloring and all of that kind of stuff, the imagery that they like to use, the different types of articles that they like to have, or the different events that they like to feature. They didn't sit down and tell her all of that, but of course those were all things that they considered, but their business is so near and dear to them that they do these things kind of as second nature, right? So they don't really realize that they're doing them, but they certainly are. And so they took a minute, she took a minute and sat with all of that and drew it out of herself so that she could share it. And now the process is great. The newsletter is amazing. People love it just as much as they did before when the owners were doing it. But it took a minute to do that. And so now everybody is very happy. That is officially off of their plate on a weekly basis. They're moving and grooving onto other things. So that is, that's just one thing that I would encourage you to do is, okay, so the process is the process, but then try to draw all of that genius out of you so that you can share that and ensure that, that genius doesn't die when you hand it off to somebody else. So that is my, quick and dirty, I guess, documentation from the car. And that is step one for you being able to drive, take and enjoy the summer with all of those around you and enjoy some time with yourself, or just come to enjoy your business a bit more. Not that, I'm definitely not saying that we don't enjoy our businesses, but there are definitely elements of the business that seem like a grind. And so this is an attempt to create some freedom and some fulfillment, hopefully a lot of both of those in your life. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate and review this podcast and share it with all of your friends. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some great things that can help you move from hustle to flow, because I believe in you and your business. Until next time.